This time, we're going way back to ancient Mesopotamia. We're going to explore the rise and fall of the Sumerian civilization. It's a civilization that achieved some amazing things,
Yeah.
and then it collapsed. So get ready for a wild ride, because we're going to uncover some seriously groundbreaking innovations. We'll talk about some epic power struggles, and maybe even a few ancient mysteries.
You know, when you think about ancient Mesopotamia, you don't often think about technology, do you?
You don't, no.
But it's really fascinating because the Sumerians, they were incredibly innovative, especially given where they lived.
Yeah,
That's right.
it was kind of a tough neighborhood.
Yeah.
So just imagine the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in what's now modern-day Iraq. And you can see why they might need to come up with some clever solutions to just survive. I mean, it's a fertile region, but these rivers were notoriously unpredictable.
Absolutely.
One year you could have these devastating floods, and then the next year, a withering drought.
Yeah, you just never knew what you were going to get. So that environment really demanded a lot of them. I mean, it demanded adaptability and ingenuity, and the Sumerians, well, they really rose to the challenge.
They did. They did. And I think that's one of the things that's so fascinating about them. You know, before we even get into their innovations, I think one of the first questions that we have to grapple with is, who are these mysterious Sumerians?
Yeah, I mean, their language, for one
The
thing,
language is a real head-scratcher.
it's an enigma. I mean, it's a linguistic isolate. It's completely unique,
Totally.
unrelated to any other languages in the region.
Yeah, historians call this the Sumerian problem, right?
Which do.
It's like, where did they come from?
Yeah.
What's the deal? And there are some theories out there, some pretty interesting ones.
Yeah.
Some folks think that maybe they migrated from the sea, you know, driven inland by rising sea levels after the last ice age. It's pretty wild to think about.
It is, and there's even this really cool legend, the legend of Oannes,
Oh, yeah.
half fish, half man,
Oannes, what a character.
emerged from the Persian Gulf
Wow.
to teach the Sumerians all sorts of things like, you know, writing and mathematics and lots of other knowledge. And I always wonder, like, is this a myth? Is this, you know, a memory? Is this a mythical echo of their arrival? It's fascinating.
It's like straight out of science fiction, right?
It's absolutely,
You got this half fish, half man coming out, and he's like, hey, everybody, look what I got. I brought you writing.
Here's how you do math.
It's going to change your life.
It is.
But speaking of advancements, I think it's time to dive into some of the Sumerians' greatest hits.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We're talking about things that they came up with, things that they developed that still have an impact on our lives today, inventions that we still use, things like writing, mathematics, the wheel. Think about the wheel for a second. I mean, that changed everything. And then complex irrigation systems, monumental architecture.
Yeah.
You know, the Sumerians, they were busy.
They were, and it's mind-boggling to think about how much they accomplished, you know? I mean, they developed cuneiform.
This writing system using wedge-shaped marks on clay tablets.
Yeah, little triangles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're using those to record everything. I mean, business transactions,
And everything.
epic poems.
I mean, talk about a record that lasts, right? I mean, clay tablets, that stuff lasts forever.
It does. And their mathematics, you know, they had this system based on the number 60.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's why we still have 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour.
We're still using their math.
We are.
They were, like,
Huh.
setting the groundwork for our modern world back then.
It's wild.
Yeah, and they did all of this because they had to find creative solutions to the problems, the challenges that they faced in their environment. I mean, it's a classic example of necessity is the mother of invention.
That's right. That's right. And this, you know, the stimulus and response theory suggests that these harsh environments can actually drive innovation.
Makes sense.
I mean, they needed solutions.
Yeah, and they found them, and often in ways that were surprisingly sophisticated and ahead of their time, so they didn't have a lot of choices.
So let's transport ourselves back to one of these bustling Sumerian cities. Let's say Uruk, one of the largest cities in the world at that time. Can you just picture yourself walking those streets? What would it be like?
I mean, you'd be in a marketplace, right? The sights, the sounds, I mean, the smells, all this daily life.
Yeah.
And you've got merchants hawking their wares.
Yeah.
You know, pomegranates, textiles, woven from wool and linen.
Oh, yeah. Freshly baked bread, that aroma in the air.
Yeah, fresh bread, the beer brewing.
I love that they were brewing beer. It's like, you know, they figured out the important stuff.
They did.
Food, drink, shelter. And then they built these magnificent structures.
They did.
And towering above it all would be the magnificent White Temple.
Dedicated to Anu.
Dedicated to Anu, the sky god. I mean, can you imagine this gleaming white gypsum facade, reflecting that desert sun?
It must have been incredible.
Awe-inspiring. And it's so amazing to think that even back then, people had their routines, their worries, their joys.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we even have some of their proverbs.
So do tell, do tell. What kind of wisdom did they have to share?
Okay, here's one. I am a thoroughbred steed, but I am hitched to a mule.
Sounds like somebody's not happy at work, right?
Yeah, Sumerian proverb, guys.
Well, they had a sharp sense of humor.
They did.
And some of their insults, pretty cutting.
Yeah.
Like if you were put in water, the water would become foul.
So basically, they were just like us, complaining about work, throwing shade.
Pretty much.
But it wasn't all fun and games, though, right?
No.
We see depictions of war. They built those massive walls, a city wall, and those weren't just for decoration, right?
Right, those are serious. No, the Sumerian cities, they grew, and so did the competition for resources and power.
Huh?
And, we have things like the Standard of this beautifully crafted mosaic.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful. Around 2600 BC, and it depicts scenes of both war and peace. So, skilled warriors as well as artisans and builders.
Yeah.
They had it all.
They have that duality, capable of great beauty and creativity.
Right.
But also prone to conflict and violence.
It is. Tale as old as time.
It is. And as we delve deeper into Sumerian history, we're going to see how those tensions play out. We'll see empires rise and fall, and we'll meet some legendary figures, and we'll talk about, ultimately, the collapse of this civilization.
So buckle up, everybody. We're just getting started. It's going to be a wild ride.
It is. So as these Sumerian city-states are growing, so is the competition for resources, for power. And that brings us to kind of a new force on the scene, a city called Lagash. And Lagash was known for its military might and its, well, let's just say less than ethical practices.
Okay, now you've got my attention. What made Lagash stand out besides their interesting moral compass?
Well, Lagash really built its prosperity on the backs of, well, slave labor.
Capturing people from neighboring areas to work their fields, to build their cities, really just fuel their economy.
So they weren't shy about exploiting others to get ahead?
No, not at all. And this actually marks a significant turning point in the region because it really signals the shift towards increased warfare and the emergence of empires. So, it's kind of a sobering reminder that even in these ancient times, that pursuit of power often came at a very heavy human cost.
Yeah, power and exploitation is a story that's been told over and over again throughout history. But Lagash's dominance, it didn't last forever, right?
No empire does.
That's true.
And Lagash had a particularly formidable rival, Umma.
Oh, tell me about Umma.
And their rivalry was, legendary. It was marked by decades of brutal conflict, and they were fighting over everything, access to water, fertile land, you name it, they fought over it.
So like a real-life Game of Thrones, Mesopotamian style.
Exactly.
Were there any key moments in this rivalry that stand out?
Oh, absolutely. One of the most infamous episodes is the Battle of Guadina, led by Lagash's ruler, Iannatum.
Oh.
And this guy, he was ruthless. He crushed the Ummites. And he even had a monument erected to commemorate his victory. It's called the Still of the Vultures.
The Scale of the Vulture. Okay, I have a feeling I'm not going to like this. Why is it called that?
Well, picture this massive limestone slab covered in carvings depicting scenes of war and, well, vultures feasting on the corpses of Iannatum's enemies.
Okay, that is pretty gruesome. Talk about a power move. I bet that didn't go over too well with the folks in Umma.
No, not at all. The resentment festered for generations. And eventually, it culminated in the rise of a new ruler from Umma, a guy named Lugal-Zaggisi.
Yeah.
And this guy, he had a score to settle.
Payback time. All right, what did Lugal-Zaggisi do? Did he get his revenge?
He did. Lugal-Zaggisi was a brilliant military strategist. He was charismatic. And he united all these cities that had been chafing under Lagash's rule. And then he launched this devastating campaign against his old enemy. He sacked the city of Lagash,
wow,
toppled their empire, and established himself as the dominant force in Sumer. Talk about a comeback story.
It is a comeback story. But wait a minute. Didn't Lugal-Zaggisi, didn't he have Like bigger ambitions? I feel like I remember something about him claiming to rule like the land between the seas.
You're right, you're right. We have inscriptions from him, Lugal-Zaggisi, and he boasts about his control of this territory that stretched from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean Sea. Now, this might be an exaggeration,
Okay.
but it reveals his ambition, right? He
Huh.
wanted to create this vast, unified empire encompassing all of Mesopotamia, and it was pretty successful. There's evidence that he actually conducted raids along the coast. He'd come back with these tales of dominance and treasure, and, that would bolster his image.
So he knew how to play the game. So we've got this powerful figure, Lugal-Zaggisi, right? He avenged his city. He brought an end to Lagash's reign. He unified a good chunk of Sumer under his rule. But even empires built on revenge, they don't last forever, do they?
You are right about that. And Lugal-Zaggisi made a classic mistake. He overextended his reach.
Happens all the time.
His empire was just too big to control. It
Yeah.
was just too vast. And rebellions start popping up all over the place.
So history has a way of repeating itself.
Yeah.
So who steps in as Lugal-Zaggisi's empire begins to crumble?
Well, that's where another major player in Mesopotamian history enters the scene. And we're talking about the Akkadians, led by the legendary Sargon of Akkad. And his story, let me tell you, this is a real rags to riches epic.
Sargon of Akkad, I've heard that name. Didn't he have a pretty dramatic origin story?
Oh, absolutely. So picture this, right?
Okay.
You got an infant abandoned in a reed basket,
Oh, no.
floating on the Euphrates River, discovered and raised by a humble gardener. Sound familiar?
It's like the Mesopotamian Moses. I love it. So how does this abandoned baby become the ruler of an empire?
Well, Sargon was, ambitious, cunning, clearly a natural leader, and he worked his way up, eventually becoming cupbearer to the king of Kish.
Okay.
But Sargon, he had bigger plans.
Of course he did.
He saw what was happening with Lugal-Zaggisi's empire. He saw the unrest,
Yeah.
and he decided to make his move.
Bold move.
Yeah.
So what was his strategy? Did he go straight for Lugal-Zaggisi? Did he attack him directly?
He did something even bolder. He targeted the heart of Lugal-Zaggisi's symbolic power. The city of Uruk, remember those massive walls we talked about earlier?
Oh, yeah.
Sargon breached those walls. He captured the city. He even tore down sections of the walls just to show everybody who's boss.
That's a statement. So Lugal-Zaggisi, I'm guessing he didn't just sit back and watch this happen.
No, not at all. He rallied his forces. Some accounts say he had an army of 50 kings under his command.
Wow.
And he marched to confront Sargon.
Okay, this is epic. So the two armies clash in a battle that's going to determine the fate of Sumer. Who wins?
Well, in a stunning turn of events, Sargon's forces, they're victorious. He captures Lugal-Zaggisi. He parades him through the streets in chains. And, well, this is where the story takes a bit of an unexpected turn.
Okay, don't leave me hanging.
Yes.
What happens to Lugal-Zaggisi? Does Sargon execute him?
Here's the thing, he doesn't.
He doesn't.
Sargon actually shows mercy. Instead of executing Lugal-Zaggisi, he allows him to continue ruling Uruk, but as a vassal under his authority.
So Sargon was a little bit more politically savvy maybe than some of his predecessors.
Absolutely.
He realized that there was a benefit to showing a bit of mercy.
Absolutely. Sargon was smart. He was a shrewd strategist. He knew that showing leniency could help win over the people he conquered. And, he went on to establish this brand new empire, the Acadian Empire, with the city of Akkad as its capital.
The Acadian Empire is born. What are some of the hallmarks of Sargon's rule? What did he do?
Well, for one thing, he was a brilliant administrator.
Okay.
He was a reformer. He standardized weights and measures. He streamlined the tax system. He even revamped the calendar. He really emphasized Akkadian culture and language, and that would have a lasting impact on the region.
It sounds like he was creating a more unified and centralized empire. What happens to the Sumerians under Akkadian rule?
Well, it was complex. The Sumerian culture, it still thrived. In many ways, Akkadian influence was definitely on the rise. But both the Sumerians and the Akkadians, they would soon face a challenge that would really test their resilience and their ingenuity, a dramatic shift in the global climate.
Or here we go. Are those unpredictable rivers acting up again?
No, not this time. It's something bigger. Around 2200 BC, a really severe drought grips the entire region. And it's not just Mesopotamia. This drought, it's known as the 4.2 kill-a-year event. And it has these devastating consequences for civilizations all over the world.
A global climate event. That's fascinating. What caused that?
Well, scientists are still trying to figure out all the exact causes, but it seems like it was a combination of factors. Maybe volcanic eruptions, changes in ocean currents, things like that. And the result was this prolonged period of reduced rainfall. And that led to, well, widespread crop failures, famine, the whole 9 yards.
So I'm guessing this didn't go over well for the Akkadian Empire.
It was a catastrophe. I mean, the agricultural surplus that had really fueled their growth, it vanished. People started abandoning their cities, desperately searching for food and water. And, Sargon's rivals, well, they saw this as their opportunity.
Yeah, when there's chaos, there's always someone waiting in the wings to take advantage. Who makes their move in this case?
So we've got the Guti, and they're a nomadic group from the Zagros Mountains.
Okay, the Guti. I feel like they've come up before. Aren't they the ones who had a, shall we say, unique approach to animal husbandry?
That's right. So, the Sumerians described them as having canine instincts, and that's probably because they were these fierce warriors, herders, and they had a very different way of managing livestock. Instead of keeping animals in pens, they let them roam freely, which, as you can imagine, wreaked havoc on the fragile agricultural systems that were already struggling.
Yeah, not a good mix. So the Guti, they see their chance and they sweep down from the mountains.
They do. They use these hit-and-run tactics.
Oh, yeah.
And they're devastatingly effective against the Akkadian armies. And eventually, they capture and burn the city of Akkad, bringing Sargon's mighty empire, to its knees.
So climate change, nomadic invasion, the Acadian Empire collapses. History just keeps happening.
It does. And the Guti victory, it ushers in this period of chaos and instability that some people call the Dark Age of Mesopotamia.
The Dark Age. But even in the darkest of times, there's always hope.
There is. And a Sumerian hero would soon emerge from the shadows to challenge the Guti rule.
As we wrap up our exploration of ancient Sumer, I keep thinking about how much they valued writing. It wasn't just for keeping track of stuff, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't just about, business transactions or keeping records.
Right.
It was more than that. It was like a way to connect with the divine. It was a way to preserve their knowledge, their stories, their culture.
Oh, yeah. It was a gift from the gods.
A gift from the gods. And it was a way for them to share their worldview with future generations. And I think that's something that's really powerful. We talked about those laments.
Yeah.
And those are more than just historical documents.
They're works of art.
They're works of art. They're filled with raw emotion and these incredibly vivid images, these powerful metaphors.
And they still resonate with us today.
They do. It's remarkable. And I think it speaks to the enduring power of storytelling.
Absolutely.
Right. And this human need to find meaning.
In the good times and the bad.
In the good times and the bad. In the triumphs, in the tragedies.
Yeah.
So as we say goodbye to the world of ancient Sumer, what are some of the key takeaways that you hope our listeners will remember?
Well, I think, first of all, we have to acknowledge how innovative the Sumerians were, how resilient.
Oh, yeah.
This was a challenging environment, unpredictable rivers. The threat of conflict was always there, and yet they thrived.
They thrived for centuries.
They developed these groundbreaking systems of writing, mathematics, agriculture. They laid the foundation for civilizations to come.
They were like the ultimate makers, right?
Yeah, they were.
They didn't have an abundance of natural resources. Like, they didn't have a lot of timber or easy access to metal ores, so they had to get creative.
Right.
They turned mud into bricks.
They did.
They turned reeds into houses, and they even figured out how to brew beer.
Lots of beer.
Lots of beer.
Yeah.
So, they got their priorities straight.
Absolutely.
But their story also serves as this kind of cautionary tale about the importance of sustainability, right?
Yeah, we talked about soil salinity.
Yeah.
And coupled with climate change, it really played a significant role in their decline.
And I think it's a reminder that even the most advanced societies, even ones that come up with writing and math and beer, they're vulnerable to the long-term consequences of environmental damage.
That's right.
But beyond their innovations and even beyond their collapse, I think the Sumerian experience really highlights this cyclical nature of history.
Yeah, empires rise, they fall,
Yeah.
leaders emerge, they leave their mark, they fade away.
Challenges arise, solutions are found, then new challenges come along.
And it just keeps happening over and over again.
It's a pattern that repeats itself throughout history, but I think within those cycles there are these moments of brilliance,
Of creativity.
of resilience. And the Sumerians, despite their ultimate demise, they left this indelible mark on the world. Their innovations, their stories, their way of thinking, it continues to influence us today.
It does. I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, their legacy lives on. In the foundations of our mathematics, our systems of timekeeping, even the way we approach problem solving.
And it's amazing to consider how much we owe to a civilization that existed thousands of years ago.
It's incredible.
And I think it's also a powerful reminder that we're all part of this interconnected web of history.
We are.
And that the choices we make today, they could have these ripple effects.
They do.
They could have consequences for generations to come.
Absolutely.
So as we say farewell to the world of ancient Sumer, what would you say, to our listeners? What do you hope they'll take away from this?
I would say reflect on what we can learn from the Sumerian experience. How can we balance innovation with sustainability? How can we navigate these complex challenges of a changing world? And maybe most importantly, how do we ensure that our stories, our legacies, are preserved for the future?
Those are big questions, but they're important questions.
They are.
And that's really what this deep dive is all about.
Right.
Exploring those complex topics.
Yeah.
Sparking curiosity, inspiring our listeners to keep learning and to keep making connections. And remember, the Sumerian story is just one small piece of this vast and fascinating tapestry of human history. There are countless other civilizations out there to explore. There are mysteries to unravel. And there are connections to be made.
Absolutely.
So keep diving deep, keep asking questions, and keep exploring the world around you. And if you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends.